Hi, I'm Sam here at Rick Jones Pianos with a truly magnificent piano. That's an understatement. A piano that we've only had 4 times before in the history of Rick Jones Pianos, going all the way back to 1983. This is only the 5th Bösendorfer we've ever had. It's a model 225, 7 foot 4 inches long, in a absolutely beautiful polished ebony finish here that my colleagues have done an excellent job buffing out. I remember when this piano came in, there were unfortunately a number of scratches, especially on the lid, and they weren't able to perhaps completely erase it, but you'd have to look very closely with a magnifying glass almost to find where the blemishes might have been at one point. It did. When we get these pianos in, we make sure we do a supreme job as best as we can, because we know the piano was worth it, and they were able to buff this piano to be really beautiful. Bösendorfer is already known for excellent furniture in addition to their musical qualities, and it just buffed up really well. Really beautiful piece of polished ebony furniture, in addition to being I dare say, world-class musical instrument. This piano is notable for having 92 keys, something which is 4 more than the standard octave compass of A to C here. That's the lowest note, highest note, and that's, I guess they call that 7 1/4 octaves. Bösendorfer added 4 more notes, which I don't have any repertoire to place them, so I'll just demonstrate them alone. And the frequency of the note is so low that you can hear the beats of the sound. It's right on the threshold of human hearing before the note turns into a growl. What I've read often I think especially it was in Larry Fine's piano book back in the day, Larry Fine being an excellent registered piano technician and writer, helping consumers pick their pianos. I think what he wrote in his review for Bösendorfer ever since the 80s, when the book first came out, is that the extra notes on these larger grand models that Bösendorfer makes aren't necessarily for music that people would generally play. There may be a handful of more modern music. I know Maurice Ravel's piano concerto for the left hand, I believe, could use the low F, although I think his own piano only had 88 notes. It's what I remember Larry Fine writing is that the lowest notes are designed to give better definition to the notes in the standard part of the piano, which, by the way, on this keyboard are all white, and then the bottom 2 natural keys are covered in ebony, so you can tell the difference between the standard compass and the extended compass. The theory is that, as Larry Fine reported, having the 4 extra notes on the bottom, which you may not use much, nonetheless helps give a better, more clear sound to the notes that you normally would use in whatever repertoire you might play, which could go as low as an A. And indeed, it is a very clear sound. Really quite wonderful. And then, of course, there's Bösendorfer themselves in general, which since 1828 represent a unique tradition of piano manufacture. They're one of the survivors, only a handful of survivors from an earlier time in piano history when there was truly a wider variety of styles of piano being made, even within the design of the grand piano. I mean, there were also square grands and other unusual shapes, transverse, giraffes, stuff that we'll never see here. But even back then, the grand pianos of the era had a wide variety of designs, different actions, different ways of joining all the parts together. There was a rivalry for many years between whether the piano should be straight strung or cross strung. Of course, cross stringing is absolutely standard today. But what happened, in my opinion, with the ascendancy of Steinway beginning in 1853 in New York, and I think also Bechstein in Berlin in the same year, was a greater, to put it brutally, homogenization of piano sound toward a greater tonal projection and a broader, bolder sound. Not that it necessarily sacrificed dynamic range. I don't think that the finest pianos from Steinway sacrificed in dynamic range, but they have what is, in my opinion, essentially a different sound from what came before, and Bösendorfer, as much as they've modernized over the past 100 or so years, they still retain a lot of the tonal quality, which in my opinion makes them unique amongst modern pianos, and which makes them, I think, carry out an old, almost forgotten tradition. And it's the tradition in Vienna in the early part of the 1800s was for a lighter keyboard and a thinner, more delicate sound, a sound that was especially well suited to the rapid passage work of composers like Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, and later composers after them in what was called the brilliant style, if I remember correctly. I think Karl Czerny was one representative of that, and Chopin sort of grew up on that too. In his native Poland, he had Viennese-style pianos. And this was in contrast to the English piano, as exemplified by Broadwood and Sons in London, who had a tougher action, sort of a bolder sound, not so delicate and thin, that projected into a larger space. And it was basically the English style of piano, which descended through France and then eventually through Germany and the United States to produce what we now know as the modern piano. So Vienna is kind of the outlier here, and you can see it in this piano. The rim is not a continuously bent rim like Steinway patented in 1878. It's joined in 4 sections, and Bösendorfer really wants you to know that they're joined in 4 sections because the corners are pretty sharp. That's very traditional. That's the way pianos were made 200 years ago. I also understand that the rim is made of spruce instead of a more typical maple, or maybe sometimes mahogany in newer pianos, Philippine mahogany in like a Yamaha or Kawai, if I remember correctly. Here it's made of spruce, which acts as an extension to the soundboard, and so the rim will actually absorb some of the sound of the piano more than it would on a hard rock maple rim on a Steinway. So that means, I suppose, less of the sound is concentrated into the soundboard, and it doesn't have quite the same type of bold tonal projection. That's really not the point here with Bösendorfer. They want that more delicate, beautiful sound. It's definitely more delicate. Not that the piano can't handle bigger music, but if you are at all interested in playing the music of the Viennese, first Viennese school is what it's called, so that's Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, Schubert, and then their descendants in Robert Schumann and Johannes Brahms, I think you'll be quite at home on a piano like this. Not that the piano isn't versatile. I think the jazz pianist Oscar Peterson, if I remember correctly, very notably recorded on a Bösendorfer concert grand for his own jazz performances. And that delicate sound is especially helpful for the crisp, clear passage work that jazz requires. So you can play a lot of music on this piano and it works for you. But rest assured, it is fiercely a different tradition than what Steinway has to offer. And don't approach this piano with the expectation that it will play exactly like a Steinway, because it's not meant to. It came from a different tradition. So I hope that's a sufficient background for this piano. And we're very happy to have it here. And need I say that the quality on this piano is absolutely excellent. We worked on it, took it apart, put it back together. It's all original, but we had to take it apart to clean it, buff it, regulate it, tune it. It's just the quality of the materials here is as good as it gets, in my opinion. It has a renter action from Germany, and everything else is just so carefully put together on this piano. We've seen so many pianos in the shop here, and we can tell this one was just the supreme amount of attention to detail here. So with that being said, we're very comfortable putting a 10-year warranty on this piano, all parts and labor, like everything else we sell, and 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. It is technically available on this piano. That being said, we definitely ask you to make sure the piano is maintained, tune it twice a year, or have a professional do it, please, and make sure it's kept away from extremes of humidity. If you do that, you can ensure that this piano will have the long life that, in my opinion, it absolutely deserves. It is quite a treasure in the piano world to have a Bösendorfer. And I mean, these pianos were meant to last. People perform today on Bösendorfers that were made 100 or even 150 years ago. They've had that reputation for excellent quality for a very long time. Starting all the way back with, I think the composer Franz Liszt made Bösendorfer especially famous in the 1830s because he was not able to destroy a Bösendorfer piano in his concerts. And Liszt was, by that time, quite well known for being very rough on the pianos he played. But the Bösendorfer that he played in that concert held up, and so their reputation was solidified for good quality. And it continues to the time this piano was made, for sure. And I mentioned the trade-up. The trade-up applies to everything that we sell here. More likely, if you're watching this video and you're even thinking of a trade-up, it's because you purchased a piano from us previously and you're considering trading up to this piano. You're certainly welcome to do that. I know one of the previous purchases of a Bösendorfer from us had traded up from a Steinway Baby Grand that they bought from us too. So you can definitely do that if you want. Keep in mind, of course, that this piano is different from most pianos that we have in their inventory, and we would definitely encourage you to try it for yourself just to make sure you'll like it. There's a good chance that you will absolutely love it if you've watched the video this far. They have a unique sound, it's an excellent quality, and if you're interested in it and you play it, I think you'll find that you will be extraordinarily impressed with this piano. But nonetheless, please do come out and try this out for yourself and see how it makes you feel. I know the two pieces I played, and I should mention them, the first one was by Franz Schubert, a Viennese composer. That was his Hungarian melody, and the second piece was by Isaac Elbanez, his tone poem called Cordoba. I felt very comfortable playing those two pieces on this piano. The piano helped me out in a way that most pianos do not. The touch felt completely smooth, and I felt very sure of where my fingers were going. Even though this piano is quite different from what I have at home, once I warmed up and got a feel for the piano, everything felt just right. And I think if you do that and come in and try this piano out for a little bit, I think you'll find the same. So if you're interested, definitely come out and see it for yourself if you can. But if you can't, you can just give us a phone call or send us an email.